Admiral Taman stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, watching the stars through the massive viewport. He had served in the fleet for 30 years, and in all that time, he had never seen the galaxy this quiet. Too quiet. The communication officer turned sharply. "Sir, we're receiving a priority transmission from the Galactic Council." Taman walked to the central display. The holographic image flickered to life, showing representatives from 47 alien species. At the center stood the Council's High Speaker, a tall being with 4 arms and silver skin. "Humans of Earth," the speaker began, his voice cold and mechanical through the translator. "The Council has reached a decision. Your species has expanded too quickly. You have claimed too many worlds. You are declared a threat to galactic stability." Taman felt his chest tighten. "We have broken no laws. We have honored all treaties. You exist," the speaker said simply. "That is enough. You have 30 days to evacuate all colonies beyond your home system. Any humans remaining will be eliminated. This is not a negotiation. This is a warning." The transmission ended. Taman stood in silence for a long moment. Around him, the bridge crew looked shocked. Lieutenant Deho spoke first. "Sir, they can't be serious. We have 200 colonies. 4 billion people live outside the Sol system." "They're serious," Taman said quietly. He pressed the intercom. "All hands, battle stations, begin emergency protocols. Contact Earth immediately." On Earth, President Hajin received the news in her office. She sat down slowly, her hands shaking. Her advisor, Counselor Jiho, stood nearby. "How many ships do they have?" she asked. "Intelligence reports 10,000 warships assembling at the border," Jiho said. "We have 847 military vessels. We cannot win a direct war." Hajin closed her eyes. "Contact the Council. Request a meeting. There must be a way to negotiate." The Council refused every request. They refused to meet. They refused to discuss terms. They simply began their countdown. 29 days remained. Deep in the outer reaches of the Sol system, beyond Neptune, a research station floated in darkness. Inside, Dr. Minho worked frantically in his laboratory. He was a thin man with tired eyes, someone who hadn't slept properly in months. His assistant, Dr. Ara, entered the room. "The Council has declared war," she said. Minho didn't look up from his work. "I know. We're out of time. Is it ready?" "It has to be." Minho pulled up a holographic schematic. It showed a ship, unlike any other, in humanity's fleet. Sleek, black, and covered in strange geometric patterns. The Genesis ships. "We've built 12 of them. They've been hidden in the Kuiper Belt for 2 years. Ara stared at the design. "The weapons." Minho. "We'll kill millions. If we don't use them, billions of humans will die," Minho said. His voice was hard, but his hands shook. "The singularity drivers can create black holes. The void torpedoes can tear holes in space itself. I never wanted to build weapons like this. But the Council has left us no choice." Ara was quiet for a moment. "Does the President know?" "She will soon." Across human space, panic spread. On the colony world of Novus Terra, families packed their belongings. The planet held 4 million colonists, farmers and miners and teachers who had built new lives under alien stars. Now, they watched the sky, knowing the Council's fleet was coming. Commander Yuna led her fighter squadron in patrol above the planet. She was young for a commander, only 32, but she was the best pilot in the fleet. Her squadron respected her completely. "Commander, we're getting evacuation requests from the surface," her wingman said. "What are our orders?" Yuna checked her display. "We hold position. The civilian transports are already loading. We'll protect them as long as possible." But even as she spoke, she knew the truth. The Council's fleet would arrive in days. They couldn't evacuate everyone in time. Back on Earth, President Hagen gathered her war council. Admiral Taman joined via hologram from the Indomitable. Generals, scientists, and politicians filled the room. Options, Hagen said. We have none, General Bonhua said bluntly. We're outnumbered 12 to 1. Our shields can't match theirs. Our weapons are inferior. If we fight, we lose. Then we surrender? Someone asked. They're not offering surrender, Taman said. They're offering extinction. They want us gone from the galaxy. Back to one planet. Under their control forever. Silence fell over the room. Then Dr. Minho's image appeared on another screen. Madam President, I request permission to speak. Hagen nodded. I have a solution, Minho said. It's drastic. It's terrible. But it might save us. He transmitted the Genesis Project files to the room. As the council members read through the data, their faces went pale. Yes, Minho said. The council thinks we're weak. They think we're primitives with primitive weapons. They're wrong. We've weaponized physics itself. Each Genesis ship can destroy a fleet alone. At what cost? Hagen asked. How many will die? Millions, Minho admitted. But if we don't use them, billions of humans will die instead. And after we're gone, the Council will do this to the next species that threatens them, and the next, forever. Hagen looked at Taman. Admiral, your opinion? Taman was quiet for a long moment. I joined the fleet to protect humanity. I've never wanted to kill. But the Council has made their choice. They've chosen genocide. We must answer with survival. Activate the Genesis fleet. The vote was close, but it passed. In the Kuiper Belt, 12 massive ships came to life. Their reactors hummed with power that could tear space apart. Captain Dong-hyun sat in the command chair of the Prometheus, the first Genesis ship. He received his orders and felt the weight of them. All crew, this is the captain, he said over the intercom. We have been activated for combat operations. We carry weapons that can shatter worlds. Use them wisely. Use them only when necessary. But do not hesitate. Humanity's survival depends on us. On Novus Terra, the first Council ships appeared in orbit. Commander Yuna saw them on her sensors, hundreds of them, dark and menacing against the stars. All fighters, engage, she shouted. The war had begun. Admiral Taman watched from the Indomitable as reports flooded in. The Council fleet was massive, overwhelming. His conventional ships were already struggling, but in the darkness beyond, 12 Genesis ships moved silently toward the front lines. The galaxy was about to learn what humanity could do when pushed to the edge of extinction, and it would never be the same again. The Council fleet arrived at Novus Terra like a dark cloud blotting out the sun. Commander Yuna counted the ships on her scanner and felt her stomach drop. 400 warships, each one larger than anything in humanity's fleet. Stay in formation, she told her squadron. Protect the evacuation transports. That's our only mission. The alien ships didn't bother with warnings. They simply opened fire. Massive energy beams lanced down from orbit, striking the planet's shield generators. The shields flickered and held. But Yuna knew they wouldn't last long. On the surface, millions of colonists rushed toward the spaceports, desperate to escape. Yuna's fighter squadron engaged the alien bombers trying to break through. Her fingers moved across the controls with practiced precision. She locked onto an enemy fighter and fired. The alien ship exploded in a ball of green fire. 2 more coming in on your 6, Commander, her wingman shouted. Yuna rolled her fighter and accelerated. The aliens followed, their ships faster than hers. She led them through a debris field, using the wreckage as cover. One alien clipped an asteroid and spiraled away. She destroyed the other with a quick burst. But for every enemy she destroyed, 10 more appeared. Commander, the shields are at 30%, someone called. The surface batteries can't hold much longer. Yuna gritted her teeth. They needed help. They needed a miracle. On the Indomitable, Admiral Taman watched the battle data with growing despair. Novus Terra was falling. His conventional fleet was still 3 hours away. Too far. Too slow. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from Captain Dong-hyun," the communications officer said. "The Prometheus is in position." Taemin felt a surge of hope. "Put him on screen." Captain Dong-hyun appeared, his face calm but determined. "Admiral. Requesting permission to engage." "You're one ship against 400, Taemin said. "I know, sir. But that's what we built the Prometheus for." Dong-hyun smiled slightly. "Trust the engineers. Trust the weapons. We can do this." Taemin took a breath. This was it. The moment that would change everything. The Prometheus dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of Novus Terra's system. The ship was beautiful and terrifying, black as space itself, covered in strange patterns that seemed to absorb light. The Council fleet detected it immediately. They laughed. One ship. The humans had sent one ship to face 400. It was suicide. It was madness. The Council commander ordered 50 ships to destroy the newcomer. A waste of resources. But it would send a message. The 50 warships opened fire simultaneously. Energy beams, missiles, and plasma bolts converged on the Prometheus. Enough firepower to vaporize a small moon. The weapons hit the Prometheus's shields and simply stopped. The energy dispersed harmlessly. The missiles detonated without effect. The Prometheus sat in space, completely undamaged. The aliens stopped laughing. Captain Dong-hyun spoke quietly to his crew. "Activate Singularity Driver. Target the center of their formation." In the Prometheus's weapon bay, machinery that humanity had spent decades developing came to life. Energy built to impossible levels. Space itself began to warp. Then the weapon fired. At the center of the Council fleet, a point of absolute darkness appeared. It was small, no larger than a marble. But it was a black hole, artificially created and controlled. The Council ships closest to it didn't have time to scream. They were pulled inward instantly, crushed to atomic particles. Ships farther away tried to flee, but gravity had them. They tumbled through space, drawn toward the singularity like leaves in a whirlwind. 50 ships died in the first 10 seconds. 100 more followed. The singularity lasted 15 seconds before collapsing in a flash of radiation. When it was gone, 150 Council ships had simply ceased to exist. The remaining aliens panicked. Nothing in their databases explained what had just happened. No weapon in their history could create black holes. They scattered, trying to escape. But the Prometheus wasn't finished. "Load void torpedoes," Dong-hyun ordered. "Fire at will." 6 torpedoes launched from the Prometheus. They were small, barely visible on sensors, but as they flew, they tore reality itself. Space ripped open where the torpedoes passed. The tears were small, temporary, but absolutely deadly. Council ships caught in the rifts were torn apart at the molecular level. Matter simply ceased to exist where the void touched it. Commander Yuna watched from her fighter, her mouth open in shock. The alien fleet that had been overwhelming minutes ago was being destroyed. Not defeated. Not damaged. Destroyed. "What is that ship?" her wingman whispered. "Ours," Yuna said. In 15 minutes, the Battle of Novus Terra ended. Of the 400 Council ships, 73 escaped by jumping to faster-than-light speed. The rest were debris. The Prometheus sat in space, undamaged, its shield still at full power. Captain Dong-hyun opened a channel to the planet. "Novus Terra. This is the Prometheus. The enemy fleet has been neutralized. Continue evacuation procedures. More Council forces may be coming." On the surface, 4 million colonists looked up at the sky where their savior floated. Many of them cried. Others cheered. All of them knew they had witnessed something that would echo through history. But across the galaxy, the reaction was different. The Council received the battle data and couldn't believe it. Their scientists analyzed the recordings over and over, checking for errors. There were no errors. Humanity had created weapons that violated everything the Council knew about technology. Weapons that should have been impossible. Weapons that made the Council's fleet look like toys. The High Speaker called an emergency session. All 47 species attended. "This changes everything," one representative said. "The humans are more advanced than we thought. They're dangerous," another said. "We must increase our response. Destroy them before they build more of these ships." The High Speaker raised his forearms. "We will summon the full might of the Council. Every ship, every weapon. We will gather 50,000 warships and crush humanity in a single blow." "And if they have more of these Genesis ships?" someone asked. "Then we overwhelm them with numbers," the speaker said coldly. "Even world killers can be destroyed if we sacrifice enough ships. We cannot allow this species to exist. They will dominate the galaxy if we give them time." The order went out across Council space. Every member species was required to send their entire military fleet to the gathering point. The largest armada in galactic history would assemble within 20 days. On Earth, President Heejin watched the recordings of the Prometheus's battle. Dr. Minho sat beside her, his face pale. "We killed them," Heijin said quietly. "Thousands of them, maybe hundreds of thousands. They were trying to kill millions of us," Minho said. "We did what we had to do." "I know. But look at these weapons, Minho. We can destroy planets. We can tear space itself. What have we become?" "Survivors," Minho said. "But you're right to worry. These weapons are too powerful. If we're not careful, we'll become exactly what the Council feared. Conquerors. Destroyers." Heijin was quiet for a long moment. Then she made a decision. "Activate all 12 Genesis ships. Begin production of more. But Minho, I want you to also start working on defensive uses for this technology. If we survive this war, we need to show the galaxy we can build, not just destroy." "Yes, Madam President." Admiral Taman received new orders. "Prepare for the final battle." The Council was coming with everything they had. 50,000 ships against humanity's small fleet. But now humanity had the Genesis ships, 12 vessels that could shatter worlds. It would have to be enough. Commander Yuna returned to base and found herself called to a meeting. Admiral Taman wanted the best fighter pilots for a special mission. They would protect the Genesis ships during the coming battle. "Can we win?" Yuna asked him. Taman looked tired. "I don't know. But we'll fight. And we'll make them remember the day they declared war on humanity." The countdown began. 20 days until the Council's armada arrived. 20 days to prepare. 20 days until the future of humanity would be decided. In the darkness between stars, the 12 Genesis ships gathered, silent, deadly, ready. The galaxy was about to see the full fury of a species fighting for survival. And nothing would ever be the same. The news of Novus Terra spread across the galaxy like wildfire. In council chambers, on alien homeworlds, in military command centers, everyone watched the recordings of the Prometheus's battle. They watched it over and over, trying to understand what they had seen. The humans had created singularities. They had torn holes in space. They had destroyed a fleet of 400 ships with a single vessel. Fear began to grow. Not just among the Council's military, but among ordinary citizens. Parents on alien worlds looked up at the stars and wondered if humanity would come for them next. On Earth, the mood was different. People felt hope for the first time since the war began. They had been terrified, certain they would lose. Now, they knew they had a chance. But not everyone celebrated. Dr. Minho stood in his laboratory, staring at the data from the Prometheus's weapons. Dr. Ara found him there at 3 in the morning. "You should sleep," she said. "I can't." Minho pulled up a simulation. "Look at this. When the singularity driver activates, it doesn't just destroy ships. It warps space-time in a radius of 50,000 kilometers. Any planet nearby would have its orbit altered. Any star would be destabilized. We used it in deep space, away from planets. This time, Minho said. But what about next time? What if we use it near an inhabited world? We could kill billions by accident. He ran his hands through his hair. I created a weapon that could end civilizations, Ara. What if I've doomed us all? Ara put a hand on his shoulder. The Council declared war on us. They chose this. You gave us a way to survive. Don't carry guilt for that. Don't carry guilt for that. But Minho couldn't shake the feeling that humanity had crossed a line they could never step back from. In orbit above Earth, Admiral Taman gathered his commanders. The holographic display showed the Council's gathering fleet, 50,000 ships. The number grew every day as more Council members sent their forces. They'll be ready in 15 days, General Bonhua said. Intelligence suggests they'll attack through the Thor's Gate jump point. It's the fastest route to human space. Then we'll meet them there, Taman said. He looked at the officers around him. I won't lie to you. We're outnumbered 60-1. Most of us will die. But we have the Genesis ships, and we have something the Council doesn't understand. What's that, sir? Someone asked. We're fighting for our homes, our families, everything we love. They're fighting because they're afraid. Fear makes you hesitate. Love makes you unstoppable. Taman stood straighter. Send the orders. All ships to Thor's Gate. We make our stand there. Captain Dong-hyun prepared the Prometheus for the coming battle. His crew worked efficiently, checking every system. The ship's engineer, Lieutenant Ji-won, approached him with a concern. Captain, the Singularity driver has a cooldown period of 3 minutes between shots. If they rush us, we might not be able to fire fast enough. I know, Dong-hyun said. That's why the other Genesis ships will be with us. We'll coordinate our firing patterns. One ship always ready, while the others reload. And if they sacrifice ships to get close? Dong-hyun smiled grimly. Then we use the void torpedoes. We have 40 of them. More than enough to make them regret the approach. Commander Yuna trained her squadron relentlessly. They practiced formations, attack patterns, evasive maneuvers. She pushed them hard because she knew what was coming. Her best pilot, Lieutenant Salmon, cornered her after training. Commander, be honest. Can we really win this? Yuna looked at the young woman. Salmon was 24, fresh-faced, full of potential. She deserved to live. They all did. I don't know, Yuna admitted. But I know we'll fight. And I know that if we do lose, we'll make it so expensive that the Council will remember us for 1,000 years. Salmon nodded. That's enough for me. President Heejin addressed the human worlds one last time before the battle. Her speech was broadcast to every colony, every ship, every home. My fellow humans, she said. In 15 days, we will face the greatest challenge in our history. The Council comes with overwhelming force. They believe numbers will win this war. They're wrong. She paused, letting her words sink in. They don't understand us. They think we're weak because we're young. They think we're primitives who stumbled into space by luck. But we are the descendants of survivors. We are the children of a species that conquered our own world through determination and ingenuity. We have faced extinction before and survived. The Council fears what we might become. They're right to fear. Because when this is over, when we stand victorious, we will show the galaxy a new way. Not domination, not empire, but cooperation, equality, freedom. To everyone who fights tomorrow, know this. You carry humanity's future with you. Fight well, fight bravely, and come home. The speech ended. Across human space, people prepared. Families said goodbye to loved ones in the fleet. Children were sent to shelters deep underground. Defenses were activated on every world. At Thor's Gate, Admiral Taman's fleet assembled. 800 human warships formed a defensive sphere. At the center, The 12 Genesis ships waited in perfect formation. Taman stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, looking at the tactical display. Everything was ready. Now, they just had to wait. Dr. Minho sent one final message to all Genesis ship captains. The weapons you carry are the most powerful ever created by humanity. Use them wisely. Remember, we're not trying to conquer, we're trying to survive. Every shot you fire should be necessary. Every target should be a threat. Don't let anger guide you. Don't let fear control you. Stay human. Captain Dong-hyun read the message and understood. This battle would define humanity's future. If they won through overwhelming brutality, they would become what the Council claimed they were. Monsters, conquerors. But if they won with precision and restraint, if they used their terrible power only when necessary, they could show the galaxy something different. The waiting was the hardest part. 15 days felt like 15 years. Soldiers checked their weapons. Engineers tested systems. Pilots ran simulations. Everyone knew the battle was coming, but couldn't do anything except prepare and wait. On the 10th day, the Council fleet began to move. 50,000 warships left their staging area and started the journey to Thor's Gate. They would arrive in 5 days. The entire galaxy watched. News networks on 100 worlds covered the story. Some species prayed for the Council's victory. Others secretly hoped humanity would win. A few, like the ancient Kalari, simply watched in fascination. A Kalari observer sent a message to President He-jin. It was brief. We have waited 1,000,000 years for a species strong enough to challenge the Council's tyranny. Win or lose, you have already changed the galaxy. Fight well, humans. He-jin read the message and felt a chill. 1,000,000 years of oppression. How many species had the Council destroyed or subjugated in that time? How many civilizations had been crushed before they could grow? This wasn't just about humanity anymore. This was about breaking a cycle that had lasted longer than human civilization had existed. Commander Yuna held a final meeting with her squadron. They sat in a circle, 50 pilots who had trained together, fought together, become family. Whatever happens out there, Yuna said, I want you to know it's been an honor flying with you. You're the best pilots humanity has ever produced. The Council is going to learn that the hard way. They laughed, but it was nervous laughter. They all knew the odds. Stay alive, Yuna said. That's an order. We're going to win this, and then we're going to celebrate. Yes, Commander, they shouted together. 2 days before the battle, Admiral Taman received a message from the Council's high speaker. It was their final offer. Surrender now. The speaker said, Abandon your colonies. Return to Earth. Submit to Council authority. We will spare your homeworld. This is your last chance. Taman's response was simple. No. The speaker's face twisted with anger. Then, you will all die. Maybe, Taman said. But you'll die with us. And the survivors will know that humanity doesn't bow to tyrants. The transmission ended. On the final day, the Council fleet appeared on long-range sensors, 50,000 ships, moving in perfect formation. They looked unstoppable. Admiral Taman took a deep breath. All ships, battle stations, activate all weapons, deploy fighters. This is it. The Genesis ships powered up their reality-warping weapons. The Singularity drivers hummed with barely contained power. The Void torpedoes sat ready in their launch tubes. Second, AT. Commander Yuna climbed into her fighter. She ran through her pre-flight checklist one last time, her hands steady despite her racing heart. Captain Dong-hyun sat in the command chair of the Prometheus. All crew, prepare for combat. Remember your training. Trust your equipment. Fight for humanity. The Council fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel. 50,000 warships filled the space around Thor's Gate. They vastly outnumbered the human fleet. They outgunned them. They outmassed them. But the humans had something the Council didn't. Desperation. Determination. and weapons that could shatter worlds. The final battle was about to begin. The Council fleet arrived like a storm made of metal and malice. 50,000 warships materialized out of faster-than-light travel, their engines burning bright against the darkness. They formed a wall so vast that it seemed to block out the stars themselves. Admiral Taman watched from the Indomitable's bridge. His tactical display couldn't even show all the enemy ships at once. The computer had to zoom out to fit them all. "Sir, they're hailing us," the communications officer said. High Commander Velthus appeared on screen. He was Arcanian, tall and imposing, with bronze skin and 3 eyes. He commanded the Council's combined forces. "Admiral Taman," Velthus said, "this is your final opportunity. Surrender. We will destroy you. Otherwise." "You'll try," Taman said calmly, "but you'll fail, and you'll lose so many ships that your people will curse your name." Velthus's eyes narrowed. "You have 12 special ships. We have 50,000. Your arrogance will doom you." "My confidence will save us," Taman corrected. "Fire when ready, Commander. Let's get this over with." The transmission ended. Velthus immediately ordered the attack. The first wave came fast. 10,000 ships accelerated toward the human lines, weapons charging. They planned to overwhelm the Genesis ships with pure numbers before the humans could react. They were wrong. "All Genesis ships, synchronized firing pattern Alpha," Admiral Taman ordered. "Fire on my mark." The 12 Genesis ships aligned their targeting systems. Their singularity drivers, built to maximum power. Space itself began to warp around them. Mark, 12 black holes bloomed into existence across the battlefield. They appeared in a perfect grid pattern, each one positioned to catch the maximum number of enemy ships. The Council's first wave didn't stand a chance. Ships by the hundreds were pulled into the singularities, crushed instantly by impossible gravity. Those that tried to escape collided with each other in their panic. The perfect formation became chaos in seconds. 3,000 ships died in the first minute of battle. The singularities collapsed after 15 seconds, but the damage was catastrophic. The Council's first wave was shattered. Debris fields marked where proud warships had been moments before. High Commander Velthus stared at his tactical display in shock. 3,000 ships. Gone. Just gone. "Second wave, advance," he shouted. "Don't cluster together. Spread out. They can't hit what they can't target." The second wave came in scattered, ships maintaining distance from each other. It was smarter tactics. But the Genesis ships had more than one weapon. Captain Dong-Hyun watched the approaching vessels. They learn fast, but not fast enough. Load void torpedoes. Full spread. The Prometheus and its sister ships launched their reality-tearing missiles. 48 torpedoes streaked across space, each one ripping a hole in existence itself. The Council ships tried to shoot them down, but conventional weapons couldn't touch them. The torpedoes were partially out of phase with normal space. They passed through matter like ghosts until they reached their detonation points. Then, they tore reality apart. 48 rifts opened in space. They were small, temporary, but absolutely lethal. Any ship caught in a rift simply ceased to exist. Matter was pulled into the tiers and scattered across dimensions. Another 2,000 Council ships vanished. Commander Yuna led her fighter squadron into the chaos. While the Genesis ships handled the capital vessels, swarms of enemy fighters were breaking through toward the human fleet. "Stay tight," Yuna ordered. "Pairs formation. Watch each other's backs." The dogfight was intense. Alien fighters outnumbered human fighters 20 to 1. But Yuna's pilots were better trained, more motivated. Every human pilot knew they were protecting their entire species. Yuna locked onto an enemy fighter and fired. Direct hit. She rolled to avoid return fire from another alien, led it through a debris field, and watched it crash into a piece of wreckage. Lieutenant Salmon flew on her wing, covering her blind spots. Together, they cut through the enemy formation like a knife. But the Council kept coming. High Commander Velthus realized brute force wasn't working. These human weapons were too powerful. He needed a different strategy. Third wave, he ordered. Kamikaze formation. 3,000 ships will sacrifice themselves to get close to those Genesis ships. Once we're past their shields, ram them, destroy them physically. It was a desperate plan. It would cost thousands of lives. But Velthus had 50,000 ships. He could afford to lose 3,000 if it meant destroying the Genesis fleet. The third wave charged. They took devastating losses from the Genesis ships' weapons, but they kept coming. Ships exploded, but those behind them used the wreckage as cover. Admiral Taman saw what was happening. The human warships opened up with everything they had: missiles, lasers, railguns, plasma cannons. The firepower was tremendous. But the Council ships kept coming. On the Prometheus, Lieutenant Jiwan called out a warning. "Captain, our singularity driver is still on cooldown. 45 seconds. Then we use the secondary weapons," Captain Dongyun said calmly. "Point defense lasers, fire at will." The Genesis ships had defenses designed to protect against exactly this situation. Automated laser turrets tracked incoming ships and fired continuously. Dozens of Council ships exploded, but hundreds more pressed forward. One Council destroyer broke through. It aimed directly at the Genesis ship Atlas and accelerated to ramming speed. The Atlas tried to evade, but it was too close. The destroyer smashed into the Genesis ship's shields. The shields held for 3 seconds, then failed. The destroyer plowed into the Atlas's hull. Both ships exploded in a massive fireball. "Atlas is down," someone shouted across the command channel. Admiral Taman felt the loss like a physical blow. But he couldn't afford to mourn. "All Genesis ships, activate linked shield protocol. Overlap your defenses." The remaining 11 Genesis ships moved closer together. Their shields merged, creating a nearly impenetrable barrier. But it also limited their mobility. Dr. Minho was watching the battle from Earth. He saw the problem immediately and sent an emergency transmission. "Admiral, I have a solution. Link all Genesis ships through the Prometheus. Captain Donghyun can network their singularity drivers." "What will that do?" Taman asked. "It will create a cascading singularity field, a barrier of overlapping black holes. Nothing will get through." "Do it." Captain Donghyun received the codes and began the linking process. "All Genesis ships. This is Prometheus. Transmitting network protocols now. Link your singularity drivers to mine on my mark." The 10 remaining Genesis ships synchronized their systems. The process took 30 precious seconds while the Council ships pressed their attack. The Genesis ship Icarus took too much damage. Its shields failed completely. A Council cruiser rammed it amidships. The Icarus broke apart, its reactor going critical. The explosion took out a dozen nearby Council ships. "Icarus is lost," the communications officer reported. "Network linked," Captain Donghyun shouted. "Activating cascading singularity field." The 9 surviving Genesis ships fired their singularity drivers in perfect synchronization. But this time, instead of creating separate black holes, they created a linked network of gravitational wells. The effect was like a wall of impossible gravity. Dozens of micro-black holes appeared in a grid pattern, each one connected to the others. Any ship that tried to pass through was instantly torn apart by conflicting gravitational forces. The Council's kamikaze wave hit the barrier and simply ceased to exist. 3,000 ships, destroyed in seconds. High Commander Velthus watched his tactical display in horror. He had lost over 10,000 ships. The humans had lost only 2. "This is impossible," he whispered, but his pride wouldn't let him retreat. "All remaining ships, concentrate fire on a single point in that barrier. We'll punch through with everything we have." 20,000 Council ships turned their weapons on one section of the cascading singularity field. The combined firepower was staggering. Energy weapons, kinetic rounds, missiles. Everything the Council could throw, the barrier held, but the constant bombardment was draining the Genesis ship's power. Warning alarms sounded across all 9 vessels. "We can't maintain this forever," Captain Donghyun reported. "The reactors are at 80% capacity and climbing." Admiral Taemin made a decision: drop the barrier. Genesis ships scatter and engage independently. Conventional fleet, full assault. "We're going on the offensive." "Ah, goad. We're going on the offensive." The cascading field dropped. The Genesis ships broke formation and accelerated in different directions. The Council fleet, expecting them to be weakened, pressed forward eagerly. It was a trap. The 9 Genesis ships tore through the Council fleet like wolves among sheep. Each ship targeted a different section of the enemy formation. Singularity drivers fired in coordinated patterns, creating black holes that pulled in dozens of ships at a time. Void torpedoes launched continuously, tearing reality apart wherever they struck. Council ships that tried to pursue individual Genesis vessels found themselves caught in gravitational anomalies or pulled into dimensional rifts. Commander Yuna and her squadron protected the Genesis ships from fighter attacks. They flew like demons, their weapons never cooling, their reflexes pushed to inhuman limits. Lieutenant Somin's fighter took a hit. Her engine exploded, but she managed to eject. Yuna saw it happen and screamed, but there was no time to help. She had to keep fighting. The battle raged for 18 hours. Neither side retreated. Neither side surrendered. It was total war, the kind that would be remembered for millennia. High Commander Velthus finally broke. He had started with 50,000 ships. Now he had less than 8,000. His proud fleet was shattered. "All ships, retreat," he ordered. "Fall back, fall back." The surviving Council ships jumped to faster than light speed, fleeing in every direction. Admiral Taemin watched them go. He wanted to pursue, to destroy them all. But his fleet was exhausted. His Genesis ships were running on emergency power, and he had lost so many people. "Stand down," he ordered. "Let them go." Across the human fleet, cheers erupted. But the victory was costly. 2 Genesis ships destroyed, 247 conventional warships lost, 90,000 personnel dead. Commander Yuna landed her fighter and immediately went searching for survivors. She found Lieutenant Somin in the medical bay, injured but alive. "We did it," Somin said weakly. "We actually did it." "Yes," Yuna said, tears streaming down her face. "We did." The Battle of Thor's Gate was over. Humanity had won. But the war was far from finished. The silence, after the battle, was deafening. Admiral Taemin stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, watching the debris fields drift through space. Thousands of wrecked ships, both human and alien, floated like monuments to the price of war. "Sir, damage reports are coming in," Lieutenant Deho said quietly. "We lost 247 ships, 90,000 personnel confirmed dead, another 40,000 wounded." Taemin closed his eyes. 90,000 souls. 90,000 families that would receive terrible news. 90,000 empty chairs at dinner tables across human space. "And the Council fleet?" he asked. Long-range sensors tracked approximately 8,000 ships retreating. "They lost over 42,000 vessels." Deho paused. "Sir, we shattered them. The Council's military power is broken." Taemin felt no joy at the news, just exhaustion. "Begin search and rescue operations. Priority 1 is finding survivors. Ours and theirs." "Theirs, sir?" "Yes. Anyone who survived gets medical treatment, no matter what species they are. We're not butchers." The order spread through the fleet. Human rescue ships moved through the debris fields, scanning for life signs. They found hundreds of survivors trapped in damaged vessels. Some were human. Some were alien. Captain Dongyun supervised rescue operations from the Prometheus. His ship had survived relatively undamaged, but his crew was exhausted. They had fought for 18 hours, without rest. "Captain, we're detecting life signs in that Council destroyer," Lieutenant Ji-won reported. 50 survivors, maybe more. "Bring them aboard," Dong-hyun ordered. "Get medical teams ready." When the alien survivors were brought to the Prometheus's medical bay, they cowered in fear. They expected execution or torture. Instead, human doctors treated their wounds with the same care they gave to human patients. One alien, a young soldier barely old enough to fight, stared at the human doctor in confusion. "Why are you helping us? We tried to kill you." The doctor, a woman named Dr. Unji, smiled sadly. "Because you're hurt. That's reason enough." News of humanity's victory spread across the galaxy faster than light. The impossible had happened. The Council's mighty armada had been destroyed by a species they considered primitives. Reactions varied wildly. Some species celebrated. Others retreated into isolation, terrified of what humanity might do next. A few, led by the Arcanian Empire, vowed to continue the fight. On Earth, President Hae-jin addressed her cabinet. "We have a choice to make," she said. "The Council is broken. Their fleet is scattered. We could pursue them, destroy their homeworlds, take revenge for Novus Terra." The room was quiet. Everyone knew thousands of colonists had died when Novus Terra fell. General Bonhua spoke first. "We have the power to do it. The Genesis ships could level their capitals within days." "Yes, we could," Dr. Minho said. "And then, we become exactly what they feared. Conquerors. Monsters. Is that who we want to be?" Counselor Jiho leaned forward. "Madam President, the galaxy is watching. What we do next will define humanity for centuries. Maybe forever." Hae-jin stood and walked to the window. Earth stretched below, blue and beautiful and fragile. "I know what I want to do," she said. "But I need to know what the people want. Call for a referendum. Let humanity decide its own future." The vote took 3 days. 4 billion people across 200 star systems cast their ballots. The question was simple: pursue revenge or offer peace. The results surprised many. 73% voted for peace. Humanity had been pushed to the edge of extinction. They had built weapons that could shatter worlds. They had won a war against impossible odds. And now, they chose mercy. President Hae-jin prepared her broadcast. It would be transmitted to every species in the galaxy. Her words would echo across 1,000 worlds. "People of the galaxy," she began. "I am President Hae-jin of Earth, representing humanity. You know us as the species that defeated the Council's fleet. You've seen what our weapons can do. You've witnessed our power." She paused, letting the weight of those words settle. "Now I want you to see something else. Our mercy, our wisdom, our hope for a better future. The Galactic Council declared war on us because they feared we would dominate the galaxy. They were wrong. We don't want an empire. We want partners. We want friends. We want to build something better than what came before. To the species that fought against us, we offer this. Surrender your weapons of war. Acknowledge our right to exist, and we will help you rebuild. We will share our technology. We will work together to create a galaxy based on cooperation instead of domination. To the species that stood aside during the war, we extend our hand in friendship. Join us in building a new alliance. One where all species have an equal voice, where young civilizations aren't crushed for being ambitious, where peace is maintained through mutual respect, not threats. To the Council itself, we say this: your time is over. The age of rule through fear has ended. But we don't seek your destruction. We seek your reformation. Join the new order, or step aside. The choice is yours. The broadcast ended. The galaxy held its breath, waiting to see what would happen next. The responses came quickly. 20 species accepted humanity's offer within days. They withdrew from the Council and requested peace treaties. Among them were peaceful civilizations that had been forced to send ships to the war. They were grateful for a way out. 15 species chose isolation. They closed their borders and refused all contact. They would watch from a distance, neither friend nor enemy. 12 species, led by High Commander Velthus and the Arcanian Empire, rejected the offer. They vowed to continue fighting. But without the Council's unity, they were scattered and weak. The most surprising response came from the Kalari, the ancient species that had observed in silence. Their representative, Ambassador Kira, arrived on Earth personally. "We have existed for over 1,000,000 years," Kira told President Heijin. "In that time, we have watched countless species rise and fall. We have seen empires born and destroyed. But we have never seen what you have accomplished." "What have we accomplished?" Heijin asked. "You have proven that power and wisdom can coexist, that the strong can choose mercy." The Council ruled through fear because they believed it was the only way to maintain order. "You have shown them a different path." Kyra extended her hand. It was a human gesture, one her species had learned just for this moment. "The Kalari will join your Concordat. We will share our knowledge, our history, our wisdom. Together, we can build something that will last." The Concordat was officially founded 6 months after the Battle of Thor's Gate. 23 species signed the founding charter. Among them were some of the galaxy's oldest civilizations and youngest cultures. The treaty was simple but revolutionary. All member species had equal votes. Decisions required consensus, not majority rule. Military force could only be used for defense. And most importantly, advanced species agreed to help younger ones develop instead of suppressing them. Admiral Taman retired from military service. He had done what he set out to do. Humanity was safe. The war was over. He returned to Earth and spent his days writing about military ethics, teaching at academies, and haunted by the faces of the 90,000 who died under his command. Commander Yuna became the new admiral. She reorganized the fleet with a focus on protection and exploration rather than pure military might. Under her leadership, human ships became known as peacekeepers and first responders throughout Concordat space. Dr. Minho kept his promise to President Heijin. He dedicated the rest of his career to peaceful applications of singularity technology. Within 5 years, his team had developed reactors that could power entire planets. They created terraforming devices that could make barren worlds habitable. They even found a way to use controlled singularities to stabilize dying stars. The weapons that had shattered fleets became tools that saved civilizations. Captain Donghyun and the crew of the Prometheus were given a new mission. They would explore the galaxy's unknown regions, making contact with isolated species, and offering them a place in the Concordat. The Genesis ship that had once been a weapon of war became a vessel of discovery. But not everyone accepted the new order. High Commander Velthus and the Arcanian Empire continued to resist. They launched raids on Concordat shipping and attacked isolated colonies. They were a persistent threat, but no longer an existential one. President Heijin warned the Concordat members, "Peace requires constant work. There will always be those who prefer the old ways. We must be vigilant, but not paranoid. Strong, but not aggressive. We must prove every day that cooperation is better than conquest." 5 years after the war, a memorial was built at Thor's Gate. It listed the names of every human who died in the battle. 90,000 names carved into a monument that orbited the site where humanity made its stand. But the memorial also listed the alien dead. Over 1,000,000 names from dozens of species. Because humanity refused to forget that their enemies had been living beings with families and dreams. Admiral Yuna attended the dedication ceremony. She stood before the monument, thinking of Lieutenant Somin and all the others who survived, thinking of those who didn't. "We won," she said quietly. "But I wonder sometimes what victory cost us. Ambassador Kira stood beside her. It cost you innocence, the belief that the universe is fair or safe, but it gave you something too. The knowledge that you can survive anything, that you can be powerful without being cruel. I hope we remember that, Yuna said. You will, because you built this monument. Because you chose to honor all the dead, not just your own. That choice will echo through history. The galaxy had changed. The Council's tyranny was broken. New alliances formed. Young species that once lived in fear now reached for the stars with confidence. And at the center of it all was humanity. The species that had been declared a threat. The species that built ships capable of shattering worlds. The species that chose to build instead of destroy. Captain Dongyun stood on the bridge of the Prometheus, preparing to depart on another exploration mission. His crew was ready. His ship was ready. The galaxy waited. Before they jumped to faster-than-light speed, he made a ship-wide announcement. When humanity built the Genesis ships, we built them to survive. We proved we could shatter armadas and break fleets. We showed the galaxy our power. Now we show them something harder. Our compassion, our wisdom, our dedication to making the universe better than we found it. The weapons that won the war are being repurposed. Singularity technology now powers cities and saves dying stars. Void manipulation helps us explore dimensions and unlock the secrets of reality. We built ships that could destroy worlds. Now we use them to save worlds. That is humanity's legacy. Not the victory at Thor's gate, not the weapons we created, but the choice we made afterward. The choice to be better. The Prometheus jumped to light speed, disappearing into the stars. Behind it, the galaxy continued its transformation. Species that had warred for millennia learned to cooperate. Ancient grudges faded. New friendships formed. It wasn't perfect. There were still conflicts, still problems. Still species like the Arcanian Empire that rejected the new order. But it was better. And it kept getting better. Because humanity had shown the galaxy something it desperately needed to see. That power and compassion could coexist. That the strong could protect the weak instead of dominating them. That the future didn't have to repeat the mistakes of the past. The galaxy had declared war on humanity. Humanity had unleashed ships that shattered worlds. But in the end, they used those ships to build a better tomorrow. And that made all the difference.